Hi, I'm Maggie Boland, Signature's Managing Director. As you can tell, I am sitting in the Signature lobby and I am here with a very special guest, Dr. Dorry Segev. He is a practicing transplant surgeon, a clinical epidemiologist, and a professor of surgery and epidemiology at Johns Hopkins University. He also happens to have been a patron of Signature Theater for 20 years. Welcome, Dorry. So you'll notice that neither of us is wearing a mask, and that's because we're both fully vaccinated.
Correct.
And you and I have been talking for a while now about what it's going to take for Signature to reopen our doors and about the reality of getting back to live performances. Today, we really want to talk about vaccines.
Yes.
But before we do that, can you tell us the story of when you first came to Signature?
Yeah, so in 1992, when I moved to Baltimore for medical school, I was obsessed with Sondheim, and Assassins had come out and run for like 4 hours on Broadway and then folded, and all we had was this CD of the music, and I listened to it countless times. If it were a record, I would have worn it out. And I was obsessed with the music. And then you all did, I think, the first non-New York production of Assassins, and I had to go, but it was completely sold out. And I called and they said, well, every night there may be a handful of standby tickets. If you're lucky, just come and try and stand by. And I said, okay, I'm a Hopkins medical student. I don't do things halfway. So I drove down here at 6 o'clock in the morning. This is your old location. I sat in the car for a few hours, and then up against the door, just in case anyone else showed up, I would be first. With my giant med school book, I read the entire day. I was the first in line of a long line of people waiting for standby tickets. There was one standby ticket that night. Everybody else was like, oh, and the guy at the box office said, he's been here since 6 a.m. And they said, okay, you deserve it. We're out. We're not going to do that. And I got to see the show, and it was amazing. And I wish I could have seen it every night. But I've also seen the new productions of it here as well.
Well, thank you so much for that commitment. That's a great setup for talking about how much we all want to get back to live performance. Correct. So what are some of the misperceptions about the vaccine, and what do you wish people knew more about?
So the one I'm still hearing today, one of the big ones I'm still hearing today, is that this permanently affects your DNA, your genes, right? These are mRNA vaccines. Your DNA is in the nucleus of your cell. The nucleus is the little part of your cell, and then there's your cell all around it. And the mRNA never makes it into the nucleus. It doesn't go anywhere near your DNA. And I think that that's really important. We're just giving you a recipe to make some protein. The recipe disappears, the protein disappears, and then while it's around, your immune system does its thing. But after that, all of it's gone. Nothing is permanently altered. And I think that I can imagine if you had that fear, it would be a poignant fear. You don't want your genes messed up for the rest of your life. But there's absolutely no way that this can do that.
So for a lot of people, a return to the theater might feel dangerous after a year of being told that being in crowds is not safe. So what do you think it'll take for people to feel like they can safely sit side by side in our theater?
I mean, I have to admit, when I got vaccinated, like a nerd, I went and I checked my antibodies and stuff just because I needed to know, even though I knew that they would be great. And still, like, taking that mask off felt really weird. Sitting in a restaurant felt really weird. I was like, my mask is off. Am I going to get all this COVID and get sick? But, you read the studies, you look at the data, you are safe. If you're vaccinated, according to the CDC guidelines, you are safe to be around other vaccinated people.
Okay, so now, reopening.
Yes.
Many theaters, including Signature, are looking to the fall for that time. We specifically are targeting November. In your view, is that a realistic goal, especially given that it's probably not going to be possible for us to open with socially distant seating?
Correct.
Because the economics just don't work. So what do you think? Are we crazy?
I mean, I don't think that socially distanced seating is a huge variable anyway. I think, if you said you wanted to open up in August, I would say that's a bit ambitious. I think November is a totally reasonable timeline. By then, we'll know so much more about the vaccines. By then, hopefully, everybody will be vaccinated, or at least a majority of people will be vaccinated. By then, community prevalence will hopefully be down. we're always watching all these things, but I think November is a totally reasonable time. I'll buy my tickets, and again, because you're in an environment where it's not like everybody in the audience is hugging everybody else in the audience. It's not like everybody in the audience is close dancing tango with everybody in the audience, and it's not like you need to be maskless. So if it still looks a little bit weird in November, everyone wear a mask and we'll be fine. If it looks amazing in November, then we don't even have to do that.
Speaking of things that we may not have to do, there's been a lot of discussion recently about some of the techniques that venues have been using in maybe a performative sense, the endless disinfecting, hand sanitizing stations every 3 feet. Do you feel like that's something theaters are going to really want to continue to try to do as we bring crowds back in?
It's funny to be in a theater talking about, COVID theater.
Theater.
I'm sure you will clean things.
Mhm.
I'm sure the theater will be clean. I'm sure we will clean our hands. I think with that baseline, I'm pretty happy with that, right? I don't think that like somebody should say, well, if they don't wash the tables every 30 seconds, I don't feel comfortable going there. I think the variables are going to be very different. That sort of the hand washing and the contact risk and things like that was like thinking from months ago. The thinking now is, will the vaccines be fine enough? Will we need masks and things like that? We know it's droplet transmitted. We know kind of how all of this works. I know that I'm not going to get COVID from the food delivery that comes to my house because there was a drop of COVID in the air that got stuck to my chicken, right? Mm-hmm. So I think, well, I'm sure that the rest of the world will have better sanitation and hygiene, like restaurants and libraries and theaters and things like that. But I don't think it's going to be a big deal.
So we've been hearing in the news some skepticism about whether America will ever reach herd immunity. Do you have any thoughts on that? And do you think that that's ultimately what's going to help people feel comfortable coming back?
We may never reach herd immunity, but remember, we don't have herd immunity for flu either, and we get a flu shot every year. We may reach the point that we just need a booster every year from this, and that this coronavirus gets added to those things that float around that we worry about and that we need protection from. And even if we never reach herd immunity in the United States, we can reach a point at which the disease is controlled. I'm sure that everyone watching wants to get vaccinated, but if people don't want to get vaccinated, I hope you eventually feel comfortable with the vaccine and get vaccinated. And the more people that get vaccinated, the closer we'll be to either herd immunity or at least controlling the virus.
You wrote an opinion piece for the Washington Post a few months ago where you expressed, and I'm going to read a quote, "A responsible public health strategy treats the whole person, not just the virus, and that there's a balance between the risk of human isolation and the risk of infection." For you as a doctor, what do you think is most important for people to hear in terms of returning to social situations like the theater?
Yeah, look, we want people to be safe, period. When there was wave 3 and no vaccine, it would have been crazy to gather in groups. We have a vaccine. The vaccine works really, really well. We have more and more data coming in about how well the vaccine works. And there's so much information out there, and it's hard to make sense of what is actually safe and what is not safe. And different people have different safety thresholds and things like that. But I think for most people, we will find, particularly by November, probably by this summer, but particularly by November, we will find that it is safe enough, as safe as everything else we do in life, that it's safe enough to be in a theater, go see a show, go see a movie, feel like you're kind of, almost normal-ish again, walk up the beautiful steps of Signature Theater with the trippy lights and say, the world is a little bit better. And this interaction with people is really important, right? I mean, depression's skyrocketed, isolation and loneliness and everything have skyrocketed. Like a part of us needs these kind of social interactions. So I think when it's safe to do that, we should move back toward doing that.
Well, I love the picture you painted of us walking up the stairs and going to a performance at Signature. I hope that's what we'll be doing the next time we see each other.
Agreed.
But I can't thank you enough for sharing your expertise with us and our audience. And I'm just so grateful for all the work you're doing.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, and it's a pleasure to be a part of the Signature family, and looking forward to seeing everyone else in the Signature family soon.
Here's to another 20 years.